On the first night of our marriage, my husband asked me if I loved him. Smiling, I said yes. He then asked if I could endure his love, and without thinking, I nodded in agreement. But I had no idea what he meant by his love. He left deep bite marks with his teeth on every part of my body. I writhed in pain and wanted to scream, but he clamped his hand over my mouth and whispered softly, "Do not make a sound. People will think we are making love." In the beginning, I stood in the kitchen with my head bowed, my heart pounding so fiercely that only I and God knew its intensity. I could not put into words the torment I had endured the previous night. With great difficulty, I had extricated myself from his arms and come to the kitchen. My condition was wretched. My entire body was covered with deep bite marks. When he came near me that night, he suddenly grabbed my hands, brought them close to his face, and asked if I loved him and could bear the intensity of his love. Without thinking, I nodded yes. I wanted to be a good wife and fulfill my role, but I did not realize how heavy that role would prove to be. My simple agreement unleashed him upon me. Like a wild animal, he sank his teeth into every part of my body. When I began to scream, he came close to my ear and said in a low voice, "Do not make a sound. People will think we are making love." This statement was incomprehensible to me. Blood oozed from some places, and he calmly licked it clean, leaving me stunned by the depravity of his actions. But since he was my husband, I said nothing. Exhausted, I finally escaped his grasp and came to the kitchen. Hunger gnawed at me, but the modern stove in this grand mansion, more palace than house, was unfamiliar to me. I did not know how my poor parents had secured a match from such a wealthy family. I struggled repeatedly to light the stove but failed and sat quietly in a corner, praying that a servant would awaken. This was such a large house that I knew there must be many servants. Sitting with my head resting on the dining table, I heard a noise at the kitchen door. I looked up to see my husband standing there shirtless, a sinister smile on his face, his arms crossed over his chest. Seeing that smile, I trembled with fear and stood up hastily. Approaching me, he said in a loving tone, "My love, why did you try to venture out of the room when you know nothing about this place? I know how much this disobedience displeases me." He seized my waist in his arms and pulled me close. His face hardened with anger in his eyes as he demanded, "Answer what I am asking you." Terrified, I stammered that I had come downstairs because I was hungry, but I could not figure out how to light the stove. He scanned my body, then looked at the stove and said, "It seems as if my dear wife is lying." A week earlier, my parents had returned home overjoyed, saying that I had brought great fortune to our poor family. A match from a very wealthy household had come without any effort. My father worked at the railway station, and my mother cleaned dishes in other people's homes. When this alliance from such a grand family arrived, they accepted it without hesitation, and all preparations were completed in just 1 week. He lit the stove and began preparing tea. Panicking, I said I would do it myself, fearing punishment for letting him serve me. Smiling deeply, he replied that soon he would eat the breakfast made by his wife's hands, but today, after enduring the intensity of his love all night, she deserved to be served. In a short time, he prepared excellent parathas and tea. When he offered to make an omelette, I hesitated but finally mustered the courage to say that I wanted one. He prepared it immediately, but made nothing for himself. When I pointed this out, he said he had no time. He simply wanted to sit with me. He warned me sternly never to leave the room again without permission. If I was hungry, I should use the intercom in the room to place an order downstairs. He made it clear that if I dared to step out without his consent, I would face not merely a husband, but the master of this house, who would not tolerate any defiance of his commands. After breakfast, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me back to the room. Though I feared more brutality, he went into the bathroom and left me alone. Emerging wrapped in a towel, he mocked my shyness, saying all veils had been stripped away the previous night. Despite having drenched me in a storm of his love, my embarrassment surprised him. Later, fully dressed in a 3-piece suit, he suddenly sank his teeth into my neck, without warning. I thrashed in agony and pounded his back, but he was unmoved. Blood trickled from the wound onto his lips. With a smile, he left. I hurriedly stopped the bleeding and washed the mark in the bathroom, alone. I sat on the bed and wept, furious with myself for not insisting that my parents investigate the groom before agreeing to the marriage. The allure of marrying into such immense wealth had blinded me. Now, having endured his savagery, I realized that my father, though poor, had never inflicted such torment on my mother. The telephone rang, and his heavy voice demanded why I was crying as if he had died. He warned that if he ever saw a tear fall from my eyes again, he would take my life. Surveillance pervaded my existence. I felt watched even within the confines of my own room. Time dragged on, and confinement suffocated me, but fear of his wrath kept me imprisoned. When hunger overwhelmed me, I tremblingly used the intercom. A woman's voice responded, and I simply said I was hungry and asked for food. 10 minutes later, a maid brought a tray laden with various dishes, rice, and rotis. She advised me to specify my preferences in the future. After eating, an overwhelming drowsiness overtook me, and I fell into a deep sleep on the bed. When I awoke, I was no longer there. I found myself in a pitch-black room, the basement. Panic seized me. I screamed for release, terrified of the darkness, clawing at my hair as suffocation closed in. Suddenly, the basement flooded with light. My husband stood by the door. I ran to him and clung to his chest, sobbing from fear. Instead of comforting me, he seized my hair tightly and demanded to know by whose permission I had independently ordered food from the servants without consulting him. He reminded me that he had explicitly forbidden tears, yet here I was weeping in his arms. Before I could respond, he struck me hard across the face, sending me sprawling to the floor. He warned that if I ever again delegated any decision, even about food, to anyone else, he would kill me and leave my body for dogs and cats. Every aspect of my life, what I ate, what I wore, would be decided solely by him. Any attempt to involve others would be my end. He dragged me back to the bedroom and once again ravaged me with animalistic ferocity, biting and tearing at my body without mercy, stifling my screams with his hand. Completely broken and depleted, I lay motionless, my spirit shattered after just 2 nights of unrelenting torment. The following morning, every movement was excruciating due to the injuries, particularly to my lower back. He demanded that I rise and prepare his clothes, but forbade me from moving until explicitly commanded. When I finally confessed the unbearable pain in my back, he carried me, wrapped in a sheet, to his car and took me to a clinic, instructing me to undergo treatment while he attended to business. There, a nurse escorted me to Dr. Makes, who bore a striking resemblance to my husband but lacked the tattoo on his hand. He was my husband's younger brother. Observing the bite marks covering my body, he and his wife, a fellow doctor, revealed the horrific truth. My husband was not merely brutal but a literal cannibal. He selected women, married them, drank their blood through savage bites, and eventually killed them. No thorough investigation had been conducted before our rushed wedding, driven by my family's greed for his wealth. They explained that escape was nearly impossible due to his power and resources, but they devised a plan. Wait until he fell into a deep, post-exhaustion sleep, then flee through the back of the house to a waiting car that would take me far away, to Kashmir, where he could not easily find me. Following their instructions, I escaped under cover of night and reached a poor neighborhood in Kashmir. Though the initial hardships were severe, I have survived. I pray to God that no daughter should ever endure such a calamity, for no woman can bear such unrelenting torment.